Yeah, sure. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jaya Vishnu Paramahamsa Parivrajakacha Shakti Tadashi Shrimad Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Maharaj ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Prem Svaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana ki Shri Vrindavan Dham ki Navadvip Mayapur Dham ki Ganga Maya ki Jumuna Maya ki Bhakti Devi ki Tulsi Devi ki Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki Jai Gaura Premanande. All glories to the Son of the Lord.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the Son of the devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the Son of the devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories, all glories, all glories to the Holy Spirit. Shri Guru. Shri Guru.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Will you be able to share the screen today? Okay. All right. That's fine.
Do it because I have a bunch of notes and stuff. I'll be going back and forth.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. I have to. Okay.
Which verse? 2:8:25.
2:8:25.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna devotees. We'll now have our Srimad Bhagavatam class. It'll be given by Shashi Sekhara Prabhu. He's live streaming it to our Zoom audience as well. So we'll put the verse up on the board so you can read it and recite it along with us.
Two 825. Hare Krishna. Good morning. We'll start with a prayer. Jaya Radha Madhava. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya
Janavala Giri Varadari. Ashoda Nandana Braja Janardana. Ashoda Nandana Braja Janardana. Amunatira Jamunatira Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravrajak Acharya Stotastata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravrajak Acharya Stotastata Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mathura Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories, Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, Hari Hari Bol. Okay. Welcome, everyone.
Would a microphone help? Is anybody here okay? Or here's okay.
Thanks, Ranchari Prabhu. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are studying and reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 8, Verse 25. It's on the screen there. Okay, great. So we'll start with the Sanskrit. Atra pramanam hi bhavan parameshti yat yatatma buhu appare chanutishtani anti Purveshang purvajai kritam atra pramanam hi bhavan hadameshti yatatma buhu appare chanutishtanti purveshang purvajai kritam atra pranam hi bhavam parameshti yat atma buhu appare chanutushtanti purveshang purvajahi kritam. In the temple.
Atra pramanam bhavan parameshti yatatmavo appare chanutishtanti purvesham purvajaitam
Purvesham purvajahi kritam.
प्रमाणम ही भगवान परमेष्टि यथात्म गुरु अपरे जानुतिष्ठान्ति पूर्वे साम पूर्वजै कृताम्
Anyone online would like to chant?
अत्र प्रमाणं हि भवान् परमेष्टि यथात्मा भूः अपरे चानुतिष्ठान्ति पूर्वेषां पूर्वजैः कृतम्.
Hare Krishna. Jai. We'll do word for word. Atra, in this matter. Pramanam, evidential facts. He, certainly. Bhavan, yourself. Parameshti, Brahma, the creator of the universe. Yata, as. Atmabhu, born directly from the Lord. Apare, others. Cha, only. Anutishtanti, just to follow. Purvesham, as a matter of custom. Purvajai, knowledge suggested by a previous philosopher. Kritam, having been done before. Sorry, having been done. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. O great sage, you are as good as Brahma, the original living being. Others follow custom only, as followed by the previous philosophical speculators. Purport. It may be argued that Shukadev Goswami is not the only authority of perfect knowledge in transcendence because there are many other sages and their followers. Contemporary to Vyasadeva, or even prior to him, there were many other great sages, such as Gautama, Kanada, Jaimini, Kapila, and Ashtavakra. And all of them have presented a philosophical path by themselves. Patanjali is also one of them. And all these 6 great rishis have their own way of thinking, exactly like the modern philosophers and mental speculators. The difference between the 6 philosophical paths put forward by the renowned sages above mentioned and that of Shukadev Goswami, as presented in the Srimad Bhagavatam, is that all the 6 sages mentioned above speak the facts according to their own thinking. But Shukadev Goswami presents the knowledge which comes down directly from Brahmaji, who is known as Atmabhu, or born of and educated by the Almighty Personality of Godhead. Vedic transcendental knowledge descends directly from the personality of Godhead. By his mercy, Brahma, the first living being in the universe, was enlightened. And from Brahmaji, Narada was enlightened. And from Narada, Vyas was enlightened. Shukadev Goswami received such transcendental knowledge directly from his father, Vyasadeva. Thus, the knowledge being received from the chain of disciplic succession is perfect. One cannot be a spiritual master in perfection unless and until one has received the same by disciplic succession. That is the secret of receiving transcendental knowledge. The 6 great sages mentioned above may be great thinkers, but their knowledge by mental speculation is not perfect. However, perfect an empiric philosopher may be in presenting a philosophical thesis, such knowledge is never perfect because it is produced by an imperfect mind. Such great sages also have their disciplic successions, but they are not authorized because such knowledge does not come directly from the independent Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan. No one can be independent except for Narayan. Therefore, no one's knowledge can be perfect, for everyone's knowledge is dependent on the flickering mind. Mind is material, and thus knowledge presented by material speculators is never transcendental and can never become perfect. Mundane philosophers, being imperfect in themselves, disagree with other philosophers because a mundane philosopher is not a philosopher at all unless he presents his own theory. Intelligent persons like Maharaj Pariksit do not recognize such mental speculators. However, great they may be, but hear from the authorities like Shukadev Goswami, who is non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the Parampara system, as it is specially stressed in the Bhagavad Gita. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadhamayam Tadati Sva Padantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachaline Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Visatadine. Hare Krishna. Before beginning, I would like to ask permission and blessings from all of the devotees and advanced Vaishnavas here in assembly and around the whole universe. Hare Krishna. One more time, the verse, the translation. O great sage, you are as good as Brahma, the original living being. Others follow custom only, as followed by the previous philosophical speculators. So, a bit of context. The scene is where this is being spoken. What we're reading and studying here is being spoken on the banks of the Ganges River 5,000 years ago.
It won't center.
Got it? So what we have here, the situation that we find ourselves in the Srimad Bhagavatam, is we have Parikshit, King Parikshit, who was the ruler of the entire world, who has given up his kingdom because he has been cursed to die in 7 days. And instead of trying to hang on to every last bit of his kingdom and enjoyment, he has decided to attempt to understand what is the duty, what is the purpose of human life, what is the ultimate purpose of human life. So he has come to the banks of the Ganges River, and there is an assembly of all of these many great sages and intelligent people who have come to also try to understand the answer to this question. And there is a speaker by the name of Shukadev Goswami, who is a appearing young man who is there to express the answer from his own spiritually realized knowledge. So what we have here is this chapter is a series of questions. We've just gone through the first canto, now we're into the second, where the Parikshit is asking questions of Shukadev Goswami. And in this whole chapter is a series of questions. And in the next chapter, Shukadev starts to answer these questions. And so in this section here, this particular verse, what Parikshit is doing is he's giving a kind of like a declaration of what the current situation is in relation to who this great sage is, who is Shukadev Goswami. And what he's saying is, you are as good as Brahma. Who is Brahma? Brahma is the original being in this material world. So all spiritual knowledge is coming from Lord Brahma, who attained that knowledge, who was, I would say, given that knowledge from Krishna himself. So Krishna gave the spiritual transcendental knowledge to Lord Brahma so far back that we can't even conceive of it from our kind of material minds, a really long time ago. And what Parikshit is saying, you are as good as Brahma, the original living being. Others follow custom only, as followed by the previous philosophical speculators. So we're going to get into some what this means. Others follow custom only, and what are these philosophical speculators? So one may come to Krishna consciousness or come to this movement, come to this temple and think, wow, there's a lot of customs here. Like what is a custom? It's like these things that a group of people do that are just kind of, that don't seem to have any actual purpose other than just some kind of ritualistic idea. And so in this verse, he's saying, well, look, others are just following custom only. But you are actually have understood and realized the truth. There's an expression in English that some of you may have heard is, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Never heard this. So this is maybe I'm dating myself, but so the idea is that you let the bathwater down the drain, right? But you don't want the baby to go with it. So although custom can be, if others are following custom only for the sake of following custom, without the actual transcendental source knowledge coming down from the actual source itself, then the custom becomes the goal. But the custom is a means to attain a goal. And when we fall into the trap of allowing custom to be the thing that we're just focused on, we can lose sight of the actual goal. Now, custom itself can help us refine our actions, can help us avoid making offenses, and it can help mold us into a position where we are ripe to accept the mercy of Krishna. Because ultimately, spiritual knowledge is coming not from our own personal endeavor or not from some kind of specific custom that we're following. It is coming from the mercy, Dhoya. It comes down into it's like saturates into us when Krishna is ready to present it to us. Now, so we understand that spiritual knowledge is coming down from the source. And true spiritual knowledge is not coming from our own mental speculation. Mental speculation means we are using our flickering mind, which in this verse, Prabhupada describes that the mind is material. It also is explained in the Bhagavad Gita that the mind is a repository of the senses. It's actually described as a sense. The mind is one of our senses. And that the mind itself is material. And all of these different philosophical speculators, which means people who are using the mind, however intelligent or advanced that mind may be, to assess the world and assess the spiritual or material aspects of the world and coming up with conclusions about the world. And then living by that philosophy. And it is giving them some level of satisfaction or realization, or even down to the point of siddhis in yoga, which are, kind of all these fantastic actual material, not qualities, but things that they can pull off. So they utilize the mind to come up with these pathways to ultimately gain some benefit in the material world and reach higher stages of the material world, whether it be stages of, higher consciousness, higher planetary systems. Although what's being described here is that actually that is another term, the booby prize. It is if you are to engage your life and follow those disciplic successions of mental speculators, one is not actually attaining the highest purpose and highest goal of the human form of life. And the highest purpose and the highest goal of human form of life is to attain our actual position in the spiritual world and our connection with the supreme personality of Godhead, that is Krishna. Now, we're all, whether we realize it or not, our life is, everything we do is based on the philosophy that we accept about how the world works. Because if one is not considering anything about philosophy, or actually looking at it, using their intelligence to consider what justifies the way I live my life. That is the philosophy, the basis of philosophy. Now, for the most part, that philosophy is just whatever customs or whatever society we grow up in, whatever indoctrination we get, we live through that philosophy. For example, in the Western world, it is the philosophy of human beings being at the center and sense enjoyment being the topmost goal of human life, and the pursuit of happiness for oneself is at the basis of the philosophy of the whole culture, the whole society. And although individuals rarely look at that philosophy and explore it in terms of how it's impacting society and how it's impacting our own life. I mean, consider, we look at society, we look at, everyone will say, so many things in society are messed up. This is bad. That's bad. We need to change this. We need to change that. But really, those are all the issues that we see in the world, in society, are byproducts of the fundamental philosophy that the society is underpinning the society. Now, until we actually look at that philosophy and expose it for what it is, recognize it, then we're kind of just pulled forward with it. And we try to fix these little things about it, but fix the products of the actual philosophy. And then we don't really have any alternative of another philosophy. What Krishna consciousness, what the Srimad Bhagavatam, what Srila Prabhupada has brought to the West, which is so groundbreaking and revolutionary, is a completely, it's not new, but for the West, a completely different type of philosophy to live one's life. And that philosophy is a radical different understanding of the purpose of human life. The philosophy of Krishna consciousness is the underpinning of that, the foundation of that is that this human form of life is meant to attain a higher awareness and break free from the cycle of birth and death, to attain our true position in the spiritual world. Anything less than that is ultimately considered a waste of the human form of life. Even high-level yoga siddhis, even higher planetary systems in the material world, what to speak of just the basic materialistic happiness that, goes as happiness, that in this Kali Yuga world that we live in, which doesn't even actually really provide any happiness to anyone. It's an illusion of happiness. So the philosophical understanding is that this human form of life is meant to uncover and get in touch with our actual true position, our true dharma. And what is that true dharma? It's to be we are eternally servants of the Supreme. And that manifests in this perverted way where we want to try to serve everyone's trying to serve something in this material world. We're serving our families. We're serving our country. We're serving our, materially motivated religion. We're serving this, we're serving that. And in the most And realistically, what's happening is we're serving our senses. And the philosophy of enjoyment is a perfect, kind of base for that. And the fundamental major revolutionary difference that we're getting in Krishna consciousness is that this body that we are inhabiting is not meant for enjoyment. It's not meant for material enjoyment. And this is the main crux of what is causing so much pain and suffering in the world today, is that the illusion of enjoyment in this body is what's propelling the whole culture and society forward. And what the philosophical point that Krishna and Srila Prabhupada has given us is that actually this body is a vehicle for us to use to actually attain something higher, but not to just enjoy in this physical body. So when we shine the light on a different type of philosophy, and we actually have a distinction beyond just the material philosophy of enjoyment, it creates this completely new depth for our life. And that's what we get when we come to Krishna consciousness, is a new level of depth. It's a new dimension, totally new dimension, that until we come in contact with this teaching, it's like we have no access to it, although it's there. In one sense, before we understand that there is a spiritual dimension to life, we're living like cardboard cutouts of the reality of who we really are. We're like two-dimensional, when in actuality, we're three-dimensional, multi-dimensional beings that actually have so much depth and so much potential. But when we're stuck in that material mode, we're just kind of like, it's like a just glass ceiling. We're bouncing up against the top, but this is why so many people's lives have been transformed in so many powerful ways through the teachings of Srila Prabhupada. And that is why Srila Prabhupada around the whole world, as an empowered representative of Krishna, through as is described in this purport, through the disciplic succession, which is the parampara, is the Sanskrit word, which means one after another. So like if you're in we don't really do this in America too much, but there's like coconut trees, or there's, you're like up in a mango tree and you're high up there and you're picking mangoes. You got to hand it down to one person. They hand it down to the next. They hand it down to the next. Spiritual knowledge comes in that way. And unless we are getting spiritual knowledge in that way, then we are not actually getting the highest form of knowledge. And unless we are getting the highest form of knowledge, as is described in the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, we are wasting our human form of life. And it's a strong way to look at it, right? One might think like, oh, I mean, come on, I'm wasting my human form of life. Maybe I'm making some progress. But ultimately, you could say that, yes, you're making some progress if, let's say, you make some yogic elevation of your consciousness. But ultimately, if you stay in the material world, see, we understand that there's a distinction between material and spiritual. And if we stay in the material world, then we have to keep coming back into another body, because also it's described in the Bhagavad Gita that there's such a thing as reincarnation. And what determines how we get another body? The living entity, who we really are, is an eternal spirit soul, a fragmental part of the supreme soul, Krishna. So like we're like flakes coming off of we're of the supreme. So we're the same in quality, just not in quantity. So all of those qualities that Krishna has, we actually have within us. And that's also why, as we progress in Krishna consciousness, aspects of greatness start to, when greatness, what I mean is aspects of of your true self start to become revealed as we get more and more purified through the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra and through the practice of devotional service. And as we walk further and further down this path, as described and given to us through the parampara. So in this verse, what we've come to the point of is that we've got those who are following custom only without a real understanding of the highest form of life. So we will see when we come to Krishna consciousness, we come to the temple, there's all of this custom. And not to say that custom itself is bad, because that keeps us connected to the parampara, as long as that disciplic succession is bona fide and connected through the teachers. But if we start to go outside of that, even in these high-level yoga philosophies, whether it be Patanjali or Ashtanga, like all these different, I mean, these philosophers that are described in this purport, the amount of, I mean, we can't even conceive of how much understanding they have of the kind of yogic processes of being able to make material adjustments to the consciousness through yoga. But again, without that higher level of understanding, it doesn't really get us to the point where we get out of the cycle of birth and death. And that is the ultimate goal. Because however high we get in the material world, we will end up having to come back if we do not make it out. And in this age of Kali, so in the Vedic understanding of time, time is cyclical. It's in Western understanding, we think it has a begin point and an end point. But from the understanding of time, it's the cycles, circular cycles. And there are, just like there are seasons, spring, summer, fall, winter, there are seasons of time where the consciousness is higher and lower. And at this current stage of our cycle, we're in what's called Kali Yuga, the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. This lasts for a very long time from our material understanding. But in this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, there are certain ways that we can attain spiritual understanding. And those certain ways come from the disciplic succession, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, who came to this world to give us the Sankirtan movement. The Sankirtan movement is the public chanting, the congregational chanting of Hare Krishna. And that is manifested through Srila Prabhupada, not only in just chanting, but also in distributing Krishna conscious literatures and in performing devotional service in the temple and on the streets, and in chanting japa like we were doing this morning in the temple. So we have this propensity to want to use our logic, to use our mind. And that's okay. But it's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which was written as a biography, or I think it's biography, right, of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life, that actually, if we put our logic and our argumentative kind of propensity towards Krishna, towards Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, if we use our mind to consider the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, that we will get what's called in Bengali chamatkar. Chamatkar is like magic, wonder, miracles. So instead of putting our logic towards speculation, towards argument, towards what this person, that person, what's happening in the material world, which we have this tendency to do, if we take that propensity and we put it towards Krishna, we put it towards Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, then we can actually attain miracles and wonder, magic in our life. And those of us who have, obviously we're all here, we're listening, somehow we have the great fortune of coming in contact with his teaching, coming in contact with Srila Prabhupada. It's no mistake, it's no accident that we're here. And given that we've attained that good fortune, the more we can pull ourselves out of the modes of material nature and into our focusing on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his logic and his understanding. In that way, we will attain magic and happiness in our life, which is what we are all seeking after, because the soul itself, who we really are, is described to have three qualities. The soul's three qualities are Sat, Chit, Ananda. Full of bliss, full of knowledge, and eternal. So we're covered over in these physical bodies because we ended up in this material world, so we're covered over. But in actuality, why we're seeking after happiness is because we're actually, it's not that just because we're not going to find happiness in this material world, this is not a pessimistic view. It's that we're looking for it in the wrong place. And as long as we look for it in the wrong place, we won't find it. But there is real happiness. And there is an eternal experience. Like, we don't have to die. We don't have to be in a situation where we grow old, we get diseased, we dwindle and we die and we take another birth. Whenever we take a birth, we have to die. But we are actually eternal. So when we go back to that spiritual place, we live in eternal, blissful, full of knowledge state. So, does anyone have any questions, any thoughts, any concerns or objections? Yes.
Amazing talk. The room's blown away. The
All right.
conviction is admirable, and you present the philosophy so nicely.
Jai.
I guess one question I could ask. You said the thing about the cardboard cutouts, like the cardboard cutouts. So like people find so much comfort in that kind of reality. So like when we're distributing books, how do you feel is the best way to get through to people, like without freaking them out? Because I feel like, sometimes I feel like we should mention some of these like more heavy topics, like, so that sometimes people can get the idea of how like important this is. But like, I guess like my question would be like, how do you do that without scaring them away?
So great question. And this is a common, so the question is, how do we present the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, especially with book distribution, without freaking them out or scaring them away before they get a chance to actually check it out? Now, throughout my time in book distribution, I've, through trial and error, understood the best, most effective way to have the best chance of getting someone to take the Krishna consciousness literature. That is, you got to soften them up. You actually don't need to present everything up front. The books will do that just fine. Although we want to give them so much, we don't need to really give, all we need to do is get the books in their hands. Prabhupada has done everything that's needed to be done in those books. Our job is not to present the philosophy when we're distributing books. Our job is to get them, what I found to be the most effective is get them to smile, get them to actually make a connection with them. Find a way to compliment them, like an actual legitimate compliment. And this is a great kind of practice in book distribution, which is to be able to look at someone and immediately find something that you can say about them that's nice, which is sincere and authentic. Because yeah, I mean, yeah, because ultimately the point is we don't want to present the philosophy we do, but we want to get the books in their hands.
That's important.
Yeah, and we have to kind of be able to control ourselves in relation to what we do and we don't say, and use our intelligence to not overwhelm them.
Yeah, because
the books themselves, Prabhupada said this, I don't know, I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, what's your 2 or 3 minute, message going to do for them? Just get the book in their hand, they'll read it, and it'll get taken care of from there.
even just touching the Bhagavad Gita is
Yeah.
so
Yes, just touching the Bhagavad Gita is potent. Why? Because the Bhagavad Gita is spoken from a pure devotee. Was this particular version of the Bhagavad Gita is actually like coming from the spiritual world. So it's like, you know, I'm thinking of like the movies, you have these like golden things that came from like some outer space and it's like glowing and it's like, you know, it's like in a treasure chest and everyone's like trying to get it, you know? So that's, and I mean, that's, you know, so that's like the Bhagavad Gita. If we can see it with transcendental vision, we can see that that's what's actually happening because the knowledge in there has the actual, this is the holy grail, the elixir of eternal life. They've been searching after this all over the world for many, many years, right? Was it Cortez who came from he came on the ships looking for the what was it called? No, the Holy Grail was something else, but what's the fountain of youth, the fountain of eternal life? So that's what the Bhagavad Gita is. This is the verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita that I was referring to. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Doya Karahar Bichar. Bichar karite chitte pabe chamatkar. If you are indeed interested in logic and argument, kindly apply it to the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If you do so, you will find it strikingly wonderful. Chamatkar, wonderful, magical. So, Hare Krishna. Anything else? Any other questions in the temple or online? But let's just give those in the temple anything you'd like to say. No? Anyone online, please? No. Okay. Thank you all for coming. Hare Krishna. Vanchakopa Trupyascha Kripa Sindhu Vivacha Patitanam
Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you very much for nice class.
Hare Krishna.
I was listening all that.
Thank you, Shashi Shekhara Prabhu.
Thank you.
Pavati.